Good day, Jacket Nation, and welcome to The Buzz. I'm your host, Dave Rivera, the father of two former Jacket football players and fan of all things Jacket football. And wow, what a performance last night from St. Augustine football. St. Augustine put on a show for all of us last night. It was a great playoff performance, and I'm really excited to be joined by head coach Brian Braddock to talk about what happened last night. And just to give you a little preview of what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about St. Augustine High School's football performance against Ed White, where we held one of the most prolific offenses to only 12 points last night, which was a major feat. Coach, how are you doing this morning? And thank you for joining me.
I'm doing great, Dave. Good to be with you.
No, thank you for joining me this morning. I know it was an exciting night last night. We are in the second round of the playoffs, so we're kind of progressing through, hopefully making our run towards a state championship bid. But before we get there, we still have a lot of work to do. So I want to talk to you about what happened last night. We'll talk about what's to come because we know who we're going to be facing in the next round of the playoffs. But my first question to you is, coming into this game, everybody knew about Ed White's offense, right? Everybody knew they had put up historic numbers. They've played really, really well. Can you just talk to us a little bit about the defensive planning that you had done this week to try and slow down that offense? Because they did set a record for the state of Florida with points. So what were some of the things that was on your mind, on the rest of the coach's mind, and even the players as you prepared this week for this game?
Yeah, I think you got to understand how they scored all those points. I know it seems obvious maybe, but it wasn't necessarily a ton of wild and crazy flash and stuff like that. They want to run the ball. They do have an explosive passing game. Their quarterback had thrown for over 2,000 yards. He's very talented, and they have very talented receivers. But from a standpoint of how they operate, they're not out there in a bunch of outlandish, empty formations constantly. They're not airing it out all over the field. They want to play with great tempo, and they want to be physical, and they want to utilize fourth down. And what I mean by that is they play with a mindset of they're gonna use all four downs. So when it's 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 10, rather than that just being an obvious pass situation, that's not how they operate. They're 50-50, just as likely to run the football, because if it's 4th and 4, they're going to go for it. They also use hard counts quite a bit, so their mentality facilitates more scoring from the beginning. Just the law of just the probabilities go up if you're willing to play, analytically, if you're willing to play with 4 downs versus 3 downs. So they very rarely ever punt on 4th down. So anyways, we weren't trying to do a bunch of crazy stuff. Our kids were ready to play and play fast, and we were going to do basic things at a really high level, and understood, I think it was important for our kids to understand their approach and understand how they're going to try to play the game. So most importantly for us was most importantly for us was being aligned with our cleats in the ground properly, knowing what we're doing, because they do play with great tempo. So that's the first hurdle. Make sure you're lined up, make sure you're ready, make sure you've got a plan that's at least, sound schematically. And certainly you can't just sit there in the same thing over and over and over. They're too good. But at the same time, you can't be trying a bunch of crazy stuff on defense just because the offense has been prolific. So, that was the first most important thing. Let's get lined up. Let's get aligned properly. Let's not be scrambling around. For us as the coaches, we got to get the call in quickly, because they're going to get on the ball and snap the ball. They want to play very, very fast, and then understanding the significance of those 4th down opportunities. And we were able to get them to punt a couple times, able to stop them on a couple 4th downs. I think turned them over a couple times in the first half, and really get a lot of hits on their quarterback. And I think just cumulatively, we were able to do a good job against them.
No, thank you for that. I want to stay focused on the defense for just a little bit, because that was a really good performance, right? I think a lot of people, even before the game, you could hear a lot of people talking about, oh, man, I think this is going to be a super high-scoring game on both ends. There's a chance to see 50, 60 points from both offenses. Our offense looked good, and we'll get to that in a second. But again, kind of on the defensive side, can you point to maybe some specific, maybe unusual or unsung heroes that maybe stepped up and just did some really, really good things to really help our defense keep Ed White to only 12 points?
Yeah, I think, we had to move a couple guys around in our secondary this week, and due to injury coming out of the Arnold game. And, I thought our young kids did a really, really good job of just being wanted to, just being prepared to play and not being overwhelmed by the moment. Um, they, our sophomores have largely grown up at this point, and so I'd say those young kids in the secondary really did a nice job of just being prepared to play at a level that was necessary for us to compete. And then um, our linebacking group, Mason Bean specifically stuck out, but they just did a tremendous job, and it was going to be a big game for them because of the nature of their offense. So truly, and not just as a cop out answer, but truly, it was a complete team effort. And that's the best way to play good defense is have 11 guys not trying to do something heroic, just all doing their job at a high level.
No, I like how you said, not to just give a basic kind of answer, but against a team that scores a lot of points and does those types of things, you do need everybody to show up and kind of give all that they have. So I want a big shout out to the defense, right? To only giving up 12 points yesterday. That's huge. It makes it a little bit easier on the offense. I want to go back to kind of before the game even started, just a quick question. How much did the delay with the travel impact you guys, right? Because the game was pushed back about 30 minutes from kickoff time.
Yeah.
How much did that impact your preparation? And the only reason I ask that it's because it's you, Coach Braddock, and I know how methodical and how you like routine, and kind of get everybody into that before the game. How much did that throw you off? It doesn't appear it threw you off much, right? The way the performance went. But were there any little things or adjustments that you made that you were potentially worried about that could throw off the team going into this game?
Not really. It's kind of the nature of at this point in time. Years ago it was maybe a little more consistent, but in this day and age, with buses and high school football, it's a crapshoot. We've been really lucky this year. On our side of things in St. Johns County, we've actually had remarkable consistency this year, the best we've had in several years with getting buses on time. But it's not surprising when those kind of things happen. And then obviously yesterday afternoon into the evening was kind of a traffic disaster in Northeast Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So, these things happen. I mean, we've had games where we're arriving and we're supposed to be on the field in 25 minutes and everything you have planned out for pregame is out the window, and you just got to get loose and get ready to play. So, not that big of a deal. They we knew when they were able to get on a bus finally, so we knew about what time they would arrive. It would probably be about 6:45. So we just backed everything up and thought, seemed likely that a 7:30 kick was going to be the goal. So we kind of just backed everything up to that, and so not too big of a deal.
Oh, no, good. All right. Thank you for that kind of explanation. I know it threw us off. And when I say us, the fans coming in, everybody sitting, waiting, excited. There was a lot of excitement yesterday. A lot of, no pun intended, buzz before the game because of the two offenses. I think everybody was focused on that. So there was a lot of excitement revolving around that. But I do want to get to the offense, right? Because the offense did, I think we ended up scoring, was it 44 last night?
Yeah.
So what were some of the things that were not working offensively that you had to change, right? It's easy to focus on all the things that work well, but what were some of the adjustments that you felt you had to do on offense that things were just not clicking that you made that allowed us to actually end up scoring 44 points and really leading to us getting a running clock going into the second half?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we didn't really adjust anything. The first series we went 3 and out. We had an open dig route and weren't able to hit. I think it was Samorian, and then on third down, didn't get the coverage we were expecting, and then I kind of had a tight window for a throw and didn't connect. So I mean, that was the first drive, but then I think after that, I think the next 5 possessions, we scored touchdowns on. So not much. I mean, we had an idea of what we wanted to do. We knew they were going to be in cover 1 or cover 3. We knew they did come out and play a different front than what they had predominantly shown on film. So I know Coach James and Coach Lippo, had to get with the offensive line and make sure that they were squared away with how we were going to handle all of our blocking assignments, but not a ton, truthfully. And like I said, after that first series, once we got our feet underneath us, the offense really played at a high level.
All right, I'm going to ask you this question, and then we'll start talking about some of the other aspects. But at what point did you feel uh, comfortable, right? That you were like, oh man, we are really uh, in the right place, and we're really going to have a
Yeah.
great performance tonight. Because even though we reached that point where we were up, I think 21-0, you still never know with a team that could score as many points as Ed White has scored. So at what point, if at any point, Coach, did you feel comfortable with the game, that you had control of the game?
Yeah. Um, certainly not this early, but I think the first touchdown kind of set the tone.
Okay.
Just with Wingo, basically just carrying guys into the end zone for the last 15 or 20 yards.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of set the tone. And then when it was 21-0, you could see the demeanor of the opponent drastically shift. So at that point in time, it was even our kids were aware of that, and we're talking about that the demeanor of the opponent had changed drastically. So I think at 21-0, certainly you're never comfortable. I mean, maybe once the clock starts running, then the game's over. But
Mhm.
at 21-0, it felt like we had an opportunity to just go ahead and kind of gut these guys and really take care of things.
Now, so you mentioned that. I do want to talk a little bit about just overall playoff atmosphere, right? Because the intensity goes up. There were a couple of things I noticed, and I don't know if other people paid attention to this. So one of the first things I noticed is there were some intense moments where there could have been some flags thrown for either unsportsmanlike, any of those things, and our guys didn't seem to be impacted by just some of the jawing that was taking place during some tense moments. Do you agree with that? That they seem to just be more disciplined and focused on, I'm not worried about what Ed White has to say or what's going on. Let's
Sure.
just focus on playing football and wrap it up. And what are your thoughts about that as far as the maturity of this team at this point through the playoff run?
Yeah, I thought we had a few different instances. One with Christian Bond, kind of towards our sideline. He was blocking a kid, and the kid really kind of lost his mind a little bit. And Christian did a good job of keeping his composure. Another with Makari Spencer,
Mm-hmm.
where he did a really good job as well. And that was certainly good to see, especially the one with Makari, because the other kid kind of took advantage of an easy opportunity to kind of get one on him. And um, so I even singled that one out at halftime. So at this point in time, it's about protecting yourself and the team, and not doing something foolish because it will feel good, or because it'll make you feel better, or to get him back or something like that. Those are foolish thoughts and immature thoughts. So um no, I would agree with you. I was really glad to see kind of the maturity that we played with. We just enjoyed having fun with each other when we did things that were successful, and just enjoyed playing the game, and that's the best way to go.
No, thank you for because I hate to use the word impressed, but I was just very impressed because sometimes your adrenaline's going, you're hyped up, it's a big game. Um, you're playing the most prolific offense in the state of Florida, right? So there's all these things that just kind of can get added into it. And I was just so impressed with how St. Augustine handled themselves in that situation. They just seemed focused on, let's get this win and move on to the next opponent. With that, and I know this may be difficult for you to do, but can you highlight somebody, maybe one or two players that you just felt their execution during play yesterday just completely embodied the atmosphere, the character, everything about yesterday, kind of micro it down to just a couple of players that you went, they embodied everything that we were trying to do as a football team yesterday during the game?
Um, yeah, that is a tough
I know that's a
question.
hard question, right? I know that's a really hard question,
Um,
but
I mean, yeah, it's hard to really single too many out. Um, just I mean, I feel like kind of how I said about our defense. I mean, I really thought collectively, in all three phases, we did a really, really nice job of everybody just doing their job. And I think if there was anything that I would want to be representative of kind of where we need to be in the playoffs, is really that. Um, we're not good enough to just hang out and wait on, Samoyan to make a play or Julio to make a play or somebody on defense to do something good. If we're not playing, if we don't have 11 guys at a time doing what they're supposed to do, um, things aren't going to work out for us against good opponents. Now, I will say on the flip side of that, um, we have good players. So if we do have 11 guys doing what they need to be doing, um, we'll make plays. We'll make big plays. But we kind of live on that knife's edge, and that's kind of always been who we are. We have enough good players that we feel like if we play the way we're capable of, we always feel like we can beat anybody. But we're also, we're normal enough. We're a group of high school kids enough that if we don't do that, a lot of people can beat us. So it's a fine line for us. And that's not a knock. It just means we just can't get by. Like we're not going to be able to just get by on talent alone. That's not the way it works. Um, there's teams we played this year with several more major college prospects, whether bigger or whatever, it's bigger kids or things like that. And our kids know that. Our kids know that if we don't, we've got a lot of good players. We've got a few that are exceptional athletes. We've got a lot of really good high school football players. So again, that puts us in that margin where if we play like we're capable, we feel like we can beat anybody. But if we don't, then we feel like there's a large number of teams that can give us a game or beat us. So that's something we talk about a lot, and it's not a thing that brings any pressure with it. It just means that we need to play the game a certain way. There are teams who can look a certain way for a quarter and a half, and then one of their litany of 4 or 5 star players will do something crazy, and then things will take over and it snowballs and they go nuts. That's not us. So I thought last night we just methodically, outside of the first play, the first touchdown. The first touchdown was
Yeah.
obviously a remarkable play by a remarkable player.
Yeah.
But for us as a team, we have to be 30 to 40 guys. Of course, we dress 60 plus, but if we don't have 30 plus guys doing their job at a high level in a playoff game, then it's not going to go the way we want, and that has to be the way we play.
No, thank you for that in-depth answer, Coach. I really appreciate that. I do want to ask you this about Ed White before we look at kind of now start looking ahead. This has got to be a tough way to end the season, right? They had such a good season, and then to end this way in the playoffs. But can you give us one thing that you admire or respect about the program coming out of Ed White going into this matchup that they may be able to say, you know what, we can use this to maybe build going forward into the next season?
Yeah, Coach Johnson's done a great job there. I've known him for probably 10 or 12 years from back when I was in Duval County, and great guy. Has done a really good job. Kind of, when he took that program over, they were in a little bit of a lull. They had some really good years 10, 12 years ago, and then has had a rougher patch. And they've steadily gotten better over the last 3 years. And what I do appreciate is they've just been trying to take care of their kids on the west side, keep them there, because it's contentious for kids over in that area. You got Oakleaf, you got Trinity, you got Mandarin pulling them east, and obviously Duval County's complete open enrollment. So he's done a really good job of trying to just build through his community. They're going to have players if they keep those kids on that western edge of Duval County at Ed White, and he's done that and done a good job. And they're not out there trying to win on flash. They're you could tell they've invested time in the weight room. They want to be physical. They want to run the football. They want to play good defense. So I think he's doing a great job.
No, thank you for that. I want to slide over now to some other things because we have the future to look forward to, right? We're advancing to the next round of the playoffs. Before we get there, though, there is something that's coming up that's very special that St. Augustine does. It is the Thanksgiving Day practice. Can you just talk a little bit about how important that day is as far as tradition and to help building team and community culture for St. Augustine High School?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's one of the best parts about making it this far is So, Thursday morning we'll do our run through. It's only about 50 minutes, but we invite the parents and families and alumni and really anybody who supports our program to come out. And it's a pretty cool morning. So it's a fun time. It's the Thursday morning practice, so it's not as really the work's done. We're just sharpening things up and going through our simulated game so that we're ready to play on Friday. And it's an enjoyable time. It's always great to see a lot of people and former players. So really looking forward to that this Thursday.
I know a lot of people that are looking forward to it. Actually, one of my sons is back in town from Gainesville, Pablo. So he's like, hey, man, I think I'm going to go to Thanksgiving practice just to kind of be there. So that actually tells you a lot that, he's back home. And one of the first things he says he can't wait to do is actually look at going out there for the Thanksgiving practice. So I think you've created a great culture with that. But now getting into the playoff picture, we are going to be facing Choctaw in the next round of the playoffs. Can you just talk a little about what we could expect from Choctaw in that game? And what do you think are going to be some of the keys to victory for St. Augustine taking on Choctaw to continue this playoff run?
Yeah. They're just a very, very tough football team. That was exemplified last night. They were down 20-7 late in the third quarter against Columbia, and scored the last 20 points of that football game. And two non-offensive scores. They blocked a punt for a touchdown, and then they went down and tied the game with about 5 or 6 minutes left offensively, and then turned right around and had a pick six for the final margin.
Mm-hmm.
So just a really, really tough, very, very physical football team. Very well coached. They're outstanding in the weight room. They've won a couple weightlifting state championships over the past few years. So a really good challenge. Obviously, there's a lot of familiarity. This will be the fourth year in a row
Yeah.
that we play them. Third year in a row in the regional final. So that's fun. Grateful we get to be at home. And but yeah, it'll be what a regional final should be. It'll be a very tough game.
No, thank you for that. And this last piece before we kind of go into wrapping things up, we are looking at 3 wins away from potentially winning a state championship. We recently just celebrated one of our state championship teams from 2005. It's been a great thing. Here's my question to you as we kind of wrap up our segment today. How do you help, or how do you lead this team to stay focused on one game at a time while also allowing them to embrace looking ahead at what possibly could be an amazing run for this team?
Yeah, that's not very hard. I mean, we've got zero reason to be thinking about what could come in a state semifinal or a state championship game. We've got our hands full this week. So that'll be the last thing on our mind. We're playing an offense that's extremely physical with a big time, very, very physical, big running back who's extremely strong, extremely powerful. And we're playing a defense that has allowed, I don't know what the number is exactly right now. They've only allowed, I think, like 84 points all season. So, I mean, we've got, and last year, we had to gut out a 13-6 win against them. So, I don't think our kids would be so foolish to be even thinking about that. They definitely know better. Kind of what I said earlier, like they have an understanding of where we are and what we have to do to be successful. And in case that's slipping their mind, they'll be reminded.
Reminded really quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So all week. So we've every week is a season at this point. So it's all or nothing. I mean, I the first clip of Choctaw film I've looked at was about an hour and a half before we got on this morning, because this past week it's nothing but Ed White, whereas, during the season you might be getting some leg work done in advance with tagging film and looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
Not right now. There's each week is its own life, and that's the way we'll handle it.
No, thank you for that. Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me again and discuss kind of what's been going on, what we're looking at going forward. I really appreciate that. I want to give you an opportunity. Any final words to share with Jacket Nation before we wrap up today's episode of The Buzz?
Yeah. I'm really hopeful that we'll have, really appreciate the awesome crowds the last 2 weeks, and really hopeful that with it being, the Friday after Thanksgiving, really hopeful that our students will still come out and that the community will come out and be excited. It's a humongous game. This is a team that replaced 15 or 16 starters, and to be in a regional final is a great accomplishment. But we certainly, our goal now is to dominate this week and play the way we're capable of, and win a regional final. So really hopeful that we'll have an awesome environment. This is 3 regional finals in a row at our home stadium, and that's not happened in a long time. So it's pretty cool. I don't think since probably 8, 9, 10, 08, 09, and 10 have we had back-to-back regional finals in our stadium. And back then I think we had 4 in a row, 7 through 10. But so this is pretty cool. It's very exciting, and I hope our fans aren't used to it. I hope they come out and support these kids.
No, thank you for sharing that, Coach. I really appreciate you. And as we get ready to wrap up, I just want to say, Yellow Jacket fans, please come out. This is one of the greatest shows you are ever going to see on turf. It's been so much fun watching the Jackets over the last few years. Please make sure you come out and continue to support this team during its playoff push. We'll be back at the end of the week, the day after Thanksgiving, to watch the Jackets take on Choctaw at home. This is going to be a fun, exciting, and very hard-fought game. So please come out and support. Once again, I'm your host, Dave Rivera, the father of 2 former Jacket football players and a fan of all things Jacket football. And we'll catch you next time on The Buzz.
Thanks, Dave.